Hello and welcome everyone to this very special Postgrad TASA Thursday. I'm Richa George. I'm the current TASA Postgrad rep, at least until Molly Saunders takes over in November, and I will be facilitating this session today. Before we go any further, let me first acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the unceded land from where I speak, the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the East Kulin Nations. I pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, especially if you're joining us today, and we hope you are. We acknowledge their living connection to country, relationship with the land, and all living things extending back tens of thousands of years. The session we have planned for today is a very exciting one. Today, we have a very special guest joining us all the way from Padova, Italy. Actually, she's not joining us from Padova, Italy. They're joining us from Denmark, who will take us through a webinar-style session followed by an open Q&A. Feel free to always put in your questions in the chat, which we can discuss later in the Q&A. So let me first introduce you to our guest, Rachele Reschiglian, whose pronouns are she, they. Rachele is currently a Ph.D. candidate in the social sciences at the Department of Philosophy, Sociology, Education, and Applied Psychology in the University of Padova, Italy. Rachele was recently here in Melbourne on a study abroad program, which is where I had the great pleasure of engaging with their work. Their work engages with intercultural communication, gender, sexualities, and queerness, digital cultures and intimacies, environmental social movements, and visuality. They are also especially interested in qualitative, multimodal, and participatory research, which I would presume is of particular interest to sociology postgrads and ECRs joining us today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Rachele. And Rachele, can I request you to first introduce us to your research project and the research context behind it before you take us through your observations of using zines, zine making, and generally participatory research as brave spaces?
Sure. Thank you so much, Richa, and thank you for all the people that are here in this afternoon for you, late afternoon, and for me, morning. I will just share already my slides, as they are already putting some of my research into context. So I will briefly share this with you. Let me know if everything is fine.
Fantastic.
So perfect, great. So for the session today, I was imagining that, of course, trying to introduce myself, it's also a way to introduce my work. So briefly, I want to give you a content warning, as in this presentation, there are going to be sexually explicit images and language that are part of the data that I gathered for my presentation and for my research. So a little bit about me, so I can give you some context to my research and also to my positionality. I have a background in communication and communication studies and intercultural encounters, so post-colonial, decolonial studies, back in Italy and in Denmark, as I am back right now for this second study abroad moment of my PhD program. I've been dealing with several topics, as already Richa was mentioning, and I will just briefly give you also context of my life outside academia, as I'm being an intercultural trainer for NGOs, facilitator for feminist and trans-feminist groups, but also educator for disabled and vulnerable adults. Moreover, this is not last but not least, I am part of the same population I'm investigating, and this is where everything comes into play about like my project and my research. So for the speech of today, I will be bringing you towards my research question. What are these research brave space? What I was doing with zine and zine making, the zine making workshop in particular, an understanding of this materiality for the study of digital practices, my experience, and at least at the end, I will be showing you exactly what I mean when I say zine and zine making as a research brave space. So starting from the very beginning, my research question in this case has been, how do queer young adults between 18 to 30 years old in Italy make sense of their digital sexual intimacies in sexting practices? And already this brings me a lot of questions. So first of all, my research quest. In Italy, right now, there is a very conservative political movement and political parties ruling. Being queer means to go and disappear of some sort of, we are still having problems being queer and out. For example, I was experiencing in Melbourne in the last 2 months I was there. And so I was also dealing with human research subjects that are in need to be protected in some sort of way. Of course, maybe they are not out into the society, maybe they are not out within their communities, their families, their work. And so this was some worries of mine when I was thinking about what can I do with my research. And me in particular, as a researcher, I am a queer person dealing in academia where studying, for example, digital sexualities, digital intimacies is still seen as a work for like a dirty work, something that you shouldn't do because what does it mean to study sexuality, and what does it mean to dive into digital intimacies? What does it mean? Why does it matter in sociology and social sciences in particular? And also, I was thinking, when I'm coming into research, is it to be considered as a space? I mean, there is a place in which I do interviews or focus groups or workshops, but what about, like, can I understand this as a space? What can I do to consider this as a space? And of course, it's a mess. Everything it's a mess. Every point, whenever I was starting doing my project, I was dealing with a lot of troubles, a lot of problems, and so here comes what I was thinking about, and what's the topic of today's speech. So, summing this up, of course, digital sexual intimacies has been dealing a lot with ethics and methodological issues, as the work of Tinberg and van der Nagel were already mentioning back in 2020. Moreover, when it comes to sexting practices, that is one of the most moral panic issued topic when it comes to digital sexual intimacies. Moreover, as I was already mentioning to you, already Irving in 2003 was talking about the digital, to do sexual sociology or sexual studies as being seen as a dirty work or some sort of voyeuristic approach towards sociology. And as I'm a very nerd person whenever it comes to methodologies and how research can connect with everyday life, I've been dealing with the transformative framework for whenever it comes to the epistemology of my research. So I don't want this research to be stuck in the academia, but I want to have some sort of importance also outside that. It could be even like a small one, but still that can matter to the people I'm working with. And as the queer research and queer methodologies was also showing, it is important to break down some standards whenever it comes to methodologies. And being myself a facilitator for transfeminist groups, I've been dealing with the concept of safe space a lot, safer space more and more. But can we understand this in research? I mean, there are a lot of papers about what's a safe space, so what's a safer space, but can we understand research as a space in which people can safely enough navigate themselves? Yeah, so in this comes my understanding of what research means to me and what I can think about when it comes to research as a word. And I was thinking all the experience of research I've been doing so far. I've been dealing with interviews, with focus groups, with digital ethnography. And I still think research as an intersection of temporalities and the embodied presence of people. As everybody is collected and experiencing the same event differently, because of course we are individualities that are collected together and they are gathered together. Even in an interview, it's just two individualities moving together, navigating together a temporality and a space, a spatiality. And all the subjects in this research, particular in the space of research, is affected by that. It's not just the person that is interviewed, because there are a lot of studies that are thinking about what repercussions can be faced by the people giving an interview, for example, for topic like sexualities, or topics that are still conceived as cultural taboos, for example, but also the researcher themselves. I mean, being a person in relation to people has brought me to meet amazing humankind, but also to sometimes also fear for myself, for my protection. And in fact, I think that there is some sort of false sense of safety in research, because there is this this concept that whenever you do research, you are the one in charge, and you are the researcher that has the power relationship in the moment. But actually, is it really that? And so I was also considering the fact that there can be possible distress. Of course, there can be one of them, but also there can be none of them. And of course, it is related, for example, with the privilege a person is having. And so, for example, the topic can be stressful for the people that are in connection with this research. So, for example, sexuality, as I was saying before, the modality. Is it comfortable for the people to speak about that, or to be in a focus group with other people? So is it good for them? Can be distressful, can be discomfortable for them to have this modality rather than others. In research, as we know, self-reflexivity is a huge part of that. And of course, people can face troubles, like issues that they never faced before. Whenever they come, they reflect upon what they did or what they are doing. And last but not least, the subject themselves that are involved can be seen as to be protected or not. And of course, this all demands for consideration whenever it comes to the individual needs and characteristics. And so I propose research as a space of care. And this goes exactly into the direction of the need to bring this concept of safe enough space towards a brave space in research. Of course, as I was mentioning before, this comes from activist practices, and it is interrelated between feminist groups, environmentalist groups, so for example, Extinction Rebellion or the Last Generation are doing exactly the same in their own spaces. And I think too, it was very much in need, like the research and the academia in particular has a very huge need to bring this practice into the space of research. But as we already were thinking about, like safe enough, so it means there is no universal safety. And that's why I wanted to bring out the concept brave space. Brave space in particular has to deal with the fact that there is no safety, like no universal safety for people that are involved into the space and the temporality, but the brave space brings characteristics that are, for example, the understanding of vulnerability and how vulnerability can be taken care of throughout the process, perspective taking. These are just some of the characteristics that a brave space can have. And the most important are, of course, for example, to lean into fears. So there is a space in which you know that you will be facing troubles, fears, problems, but you have the space, the time, the modes in which you can overcome them. It's not in the psychological way of thinking that, but to face some problems and to stay into the trouble, to stay into the discomfort, to understand yourself better and the others. And the other one is challenge by choice. So you can choose to be in trouble, to get in trouble. It's not something that I required as a researcher or as a person. It's something that you can choose and you can take, and of course, in this case, it's always offered a way of exit if you need that. And last but not least, respect of all the individualities. And this, as I was mentioning before, it's a mess. Yes, Brave was actually embracing the messiness and the complexity of human being, as everything, all the characteristics are actually collecting the individual needs. It's like the individual needs into a collective, in a collective setting. And whenever I was going and dealing with Brave Space, I was thinking about cultures of care that has been brought into our traditions. And I saw that in Australia, it is also a very Aboriginal concept of the culture of care. And when I was navigating that space, it was resonating a lot with what I was seeing in my research and in my culture as well. Moreover, I wanted to point out that neurodiversity has to be brought up when it comes to research, as for example, more and more, for example, for me, queer people are dealing with neurodiversity and troubles whenever it comes to, for example, explicitly expliciting wordly what they want to say. And so these were some of the characteristics that I thought that Brave Space could bring to the play, into play. And these are some of the references for the culture of care. For example, Della Bella Casa already put out an amazing work about how more than human words were helping to understand care for humankind, the Care Collective, and also the Regenerative Action Circle of Extinction Rebellion were some of the inspiration for all this work. And I totally recommend to give it out a try for the crypt theory work of McRuer, as it has brought me a light into what I was also experienced as a researcher myself, into living academia. So going into the concept itself of research break space, I understand research break space as a methodological posture and scope so that wants to put the human subjects that can be researchers and the participants into a more ethical perspective and in transformative mindset as the one of the work of Mertens. And of course, there is no gatekeeping between activist practices and academic one, as they are embracing all the dissonances, the vulnerability, the discomfort that can be faced during our work. And I want to suggest some of strategies that can be used. For example, I defined three of them, but I think that the more I'm doing my research, the more are coming up. So far, I've been facing physical difficulties or physical anxieties. For example, accessible structures could be one of the first thoughts we need to do whenever we want to create this research brave space for the people that we are working with. And this comes from CREEP studies, disabled and marginalized people. So accessible structure is just not for example, an easy access for wheelchair users, but also places in which people of color, queers cannot face discrimination. Moreover, A second level could be the cognitive one, as neurodiversity and neurodivergence studies were suggesting me, for example, giving a lot of time breaks during the sessions. And time breaks between, it means also to stop the conversation, to, I don't know, move around the room, or just to sit still and do not talk during the don't talk during the moment of time break. Moreover, the third one, that is not the last to be considered, is the emotional one. As we are facing vulnerability and discomfort that sometimes surprise ourselves, because this is something that we cannot predict as before entering the space, but we can still think that it could be possible. We can give a decompression space and a decompression time to people. So, for example, if you feel uncomfortable whenever I am talking with sexuality, you can leave the Zoom call, you can stop the audio, you can leave your room, and this is still decompression time. And whenever you are ready, you can come back. This is something that I do during my my sessions, also in interviews. And so this is like a brief, I love schemes because I am not a very worldly person, even if you wouldn't say that from me speaking. But this was my try to schematize what I was thinking when it comes to research-based space. And of course, the agency of the researcher is a huge part of that, because we are the ones in charge of our project, of the project we are working with, and we need to care about what we do, and also we need to take care of what we do. And this comes to the topic, to the modalities, to the people that are involved in our research, and so on, so on, so on. And I still feel that some of the properties or some of the characteristics you can see into the research-based space has to deal with relationality, interdependence, empathy, compassion, mutuality, and hesitancy. These are some of the characteristics of a ethical, digital, in particular, digital research by the work of Tiedenberg, that I recommend to give it a look. And I was saying, for the layers that are also linked to the strategies are the physical, the cognitive, and emotional. And this tries to push from discomfort, distress, and vulnerability into bravery and courage and resilience. And this, of course, can be seen as research as a transformative act in which it is personal, but also societal, because whenever you're facing a change within a small setting, you're also transforming the society we are living in. This is very pretentious of mine, but I'm trying to give it a try to what I am doing outside academia, in academia, the same. So now that we have in mind what research-based space is, I wanted to put it in play, and this is where my research comes in. When I was trying to deal with the methodological choice of what I was going for, I was collecting different methods. So the creative ones, the multimodal ones, and the collaborative. And all of them are actually dealing with the reflexivity, the constructions, and embracing the discomfort and dissonance. But in particular, for the creative and the multimodal ones, it is seen and it is studied that it goes through the phases of the research. So it comes from data gathering into, for example, research presentation, but it works across disciplines. So it can be sexuality, it can be environmentalism, it can be also medicine, it can be maths, it can work with engineering as well, and themes. So this is what I was going for. So collecting all the methods, and in intersection of that, there is zine-making. For whom for whom is not very comfortable with multimodal methods, it is like a methodologies in which you are not analyzing just, for example, text, but there is a combination of visual, textual, intertextual, musical, for example, elements like audio elements, video elements together, and decompose the data you are analyzing. And this is something that it's related to Zine or Zine, or it depends on. I really don't see like a proper pronunciation around Europe. Some is saying fanzine, fanzine, zine. I don't know, but I like the fact that also people that are working with that, they don't know, and they just embrace the fact that they don't know how to pronounce it. So zine and zine making, for whom I never heard the zine or zine, it's the short version of fanzine. That is a punk. It's a do-it-yourself. It's a punk product, cultural product, in which people are destroying the rules of comic making and editorial choices for magazines. So it's very disrupted. It's very unruly. It's a messy process that brings different subjectivities together, and they want to work along with different teams, for example. These are pictures from my zine making workshops. And I literally, as you can see, there is messiness already there. But you can do whatever. You can write. You can do poetry. You can do collages. You can also don't do anything. And this is also your statement towards a topic. So I want to go directly to my research, as probably is going to be easier to understand what do I mean when it comes to zine making as a research-based space, a site of research-based space. In particular, these are the details of my research that I conducted so far. They were workshops, 3 hours long. There were 3 meetings that I've been doing from March to May 2024. So it's recently stopped. These are the people that were working with me. Some of them participated to all the meetings. Some were just went for the first one and came back for the second or the third. Somebody else just came for one. It was up to them to choose if they felt comfortable to come along with me or not. It was into an accessible and not political space. This is important because for queers in Italy, it really matters to where we meet, because if you meet in a particular space, so you are connected to a political party, to a political stance, to a political perspective, and sometimes they collide with each other. So I wanted to have an accessible and non-political space. So it was like a municipal accessible space. I provided creative material, but food and music as well, because I wanted to have a very cozy space. And I asked them to bring steaming material and creative material if they felt the need for them. And last but not least, I was giving check-ins and check-outs in any session. So a first moment to gather together, to get to know each other, and also to know which triggers, for example, we could face throughout the session, and in checkouts to see if they felt okay, what was going to happen after, or how they were feeling just after 3 hours of creative work. And at the bottom of my slide, you can see 3 topics: me and sexting, sexting and sensations, and risk and fears. These are the topics of the 3 sessions. So in the first meeting, we were dealing with a very general, very broad understanding of sexting. So how do you relate? What does it mean to you? It's up to the person to tell me something about sexting. in the second session, I was focusing on a particular theoretical concept that is called the canal resonance. And I wanted to see how they were dealing with the bodily sensation, emotional sensation in this digital sexual intimacy in particular. And the last was risk and fears, that in literature is one of the most studied one when it comes to sexting practices, but is one of also of the most powerful whenever it comes to discomfort, to fears. And I wanted to give it a try at the end of the path. So this is like a brief presentation of the workshops, and here we go with some of the results. These two parts are from the first meeting I was doing. It was from Chiara and from Carlo. In the first one on the left, you can see there is already the moment in which they were trying to see the negative emotions of sexting. This was coming from me and sexting, so there was no connotation when it comes to negative things, but this person in particular was trying to consider the two elements, the pride of doing that, but also the anxiety, the shame when it comes to nudity and digital nudity in particular, because in the three words that are the two words that are into Italian, it says the sexual instinct. Is it a sexual instinct? And the last part with X is it is a fear of her that what happened if I break up with the person I'm doing sexting. Are they doing something wrong with my picture? Instead, on the right side, it was much more into the pride, to feeling confident and being sexy, like taking sexiness out and embracing that. On the right, on the work of Carlo, Carlo has been one of the one guy gay, a gay guy and cis guy actually, that came just for the first meeting, and he was okay, I want to talk about my experience, and he was actually talking about Grindr experience of sexting. And it is this puff-fish character that says in the beginning, like in the very first part, he says, "Oh, it's so good. I'm feeling so well. You know what? Maybe." And he downloaded the Grindr app, and it says any queers knows which app is it. And he was sending like a hi message, and the dick pic. And the dick pic arrived from the recipient, and says, "Again, what a pain. I get stressed when sex is involved." Guys, I don't know if you know, but this too is harassment, and for some, it represents violence. So already in the first meeting, no connotation, negative connotation, but he wanted to bring out this element because at the end of the meeting, he was saying, "I felt okay doing that because I wanted to talk about this topic before any others." This is still from the first meeting, and it is from CF. It's a wordplay about how she was sexting in a different language, and says for a long time playing, I've never fucked in Italian. Now I can only say I never sexed in Italian. I wonder if I could do it if I think of the dirty stuff I wrote in another language. So this was a more ironical take for her. She was trying to play around what was her experience of sexting. And if you see, there is also a QR code. The QR code goes to a Spotify playlist. So there is also this element of disconnection from the paper-based one into the digital, because she thought it was cool to have some music that she thinks it's good to have when you're doing sexting. And this was from the first meeting, but in the second one, she was doing this thing. It was about me and sexting and sensation. And she told me I wanted to play with the edging, the practice of edging. So to push to the limit to a person, to stop just right before the orgasm, and after give them the release some time after. So this is the space, like the project she made, and it says, "Tell me when." After this, in the conversation we had, the checkout we had, she was saying, "I'm always a very ironic person, but I thought it's time to do something different, to actually talk about the practice, to talk about my sensation without making fun of that." And she felt that because she was confident with the group we were dealing with space, with the material, and also she thanked that because it was the first time for her not to do an ironical take on the things she was talking about. This is from Benedetta, from the almost the last it's almost the last result I want to share with you, and it's the first two on the top is from the first meeting, the second one is from the second meeting she did. In the first one, it's very negative, there is a negative connotation, and she didn't want to show this to the group. She was like, "Oh, no, I will give it to you as a researcher, you can analyze that, but I will not show this to the group." The second time around, so the last two bottom, is much more explicit. It's much more about celebration. It's much more into positive connotation. And in particular, you can see there is a lot of I know that you don't know Italian, but it's like everything is blooming. It's a blooming of histories, and it's one step at the time. One step at the time, and it's like bringing her courage to embrace a part of her body that she felt wasn't good enough when doing sexting. So this is already like a different take, and a very courageous stance she did during the second meeting in particular. And this is one of the comic creators that came into my workshop. She was the only artist coming into the three session. These are from on the left to the first meeting, and the second from the second meeting. And this is what she said at the end of the first meeting. "It went much smoother than expected. It was something I did it to go out of my comfort zone. Also because the sexual and hypersexual stuff are things that I want to explore, but I fear to be less or worse than the others. And I wanted to lean into these fears. It went so nice, and the space was safe and chill." So this is and this is from the third meeting she did. It was about about risk and fears, and she did this comic about forgetting to take out the self-destruction feature into the nudes she was sending, and it was very fun. And she was like, "Okay, I will do something fun now," and here we go. So this is the final product we are going to share with the community in my own city, and probably we will be having a fundraising for the trans community in particular, since we are facing a lot of rejection into post-operation checkups, and they are increasing the costs of sexual health for that part of the community. So this is the element I wanted to bring out of my research and to give it back to my community in particular. And a very brief element about why doing an analogical practice for the digital topic. And this is, of course, because I want something that protect the people, and I can easily give them the choice to be anonymous or to decide for themselves how much they want to share about their digital intimacy. It ignites self-reflexivity differently. about digitality in particular, and it embraced the messiness that sometimes digital space it cannot give us because it's very structured, and also it's as Lupton and Watson saw during their zine-making session, it's important to gain a deeper knowledge about digital practice through these collaborative and creative methods already. Of course, I cannot access the practice per se, but it is a first step. And this is my experience. This is what I did to make people comfortable to share with me, but also it was important for me as an academic not to stick just to the paper I was studying or just to the books I was reading. So I really pushed myself out. I wanted to feel how it was to think about my topic in a different way, and these are some of my artistic. See, I'm not an artistic person. I'm just like a very messy person that doesn't like very much to write long texts, and this is something that went out from this. And here goes the connection between research-based space and zine making. Being anarchical, do-it-yourself, punk, non-mainstream means wanted to, the zines in particular were trying to challenge the status quo and construct resilience and show this resilience to people are out there. And it's basically grassroots, it's longitudinal, there are workshops, it's flexible and self-tailoring to the purpose that you want to achieve. And as a method in particular, as being taking care of the people that you're working with, it is individual and collective, because of course there is the individual space for the people to express themselves, but into a collective setting. It's collaborative and unruly. And as for the research-based space, we can see that it resonates a lot because it's a transformative. If research is seen as a transformative act, that's the way in which you could see and you could perform. It safeguards self-reflection, and it's not just in a exploitative in that sense. It creates negotiation, ongoing negotiation between the researcher and the subjects, take care of the vulnerability, the discomfort. It also gives space for the individual to choose what to use in terms of, for example, words, text, images, and so on, and gives the choice to lean into fear and to be challenged. And last but not least, to embrace conflicts, because they can happen. In my case in particular, it didn't happen, but what if it happened? And I saw other projects in which I wasn't considering this space as a research-based space. Conflicts were out there, mostly because, for example, in focus groups, very different point of view were clashing with each other, and sometimes researchers and the mediators weren't really focusing on that to preserve the space. And to end my presentation, I wanted to bring out some of the elements, of course, of what it means to use zine-making as a site of research-based space, and it recognizes specific hurdles that some non-normative identities, for example, people of color, sexual diverse people, or can face, fostering awareness and solidarity between the people, and acknowledging the experience of the individual, not just using them and for data production, but actually acknowledging and embracing them, while circumventing gatekeeping, for example, from both the community I'm working with and academia, and it brings a lot of focus on the need to always reflect on resources and power within research, as we are dealing with people, and we ourselves are people. And of course, I hope that this particular method creates environments for not a transformative research framework, but also to enable a courageous co-production of knowledge between all the people. So this is in a nutshell, and I will be stop sharing. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rachele. That was both radical and illuminating, and I hope it inspires similar critical reflexivity within the colleagues that have joined us today to think about their own research projects as, potentially transformative. So now that we're at the end of the webinar, I'm going to open up this forum to discuss some questions quickly, since we have about 10 minutes. So feel free to just signal or unmute your mic and just ask your question. Alternatively, you can also put your comments and your questions in the chat box, and we can pick it up as part of the Q&A.
Thank you for sticking up until now.
Eve's got her hand up, Richard.
Go, Eve.
Thanks so much, Raquel, and thank you so much, for organising this. I found this, just wonderful. And I'm actually confessing I'm working with zines at the moment in a kind of
great.
participatory analysis phase. So we had the people who've been it's a climate justice project with young people as co-researchers as part of the team. But then first we had like 2 longer conversations with people just about their work and their activism and their education experiences as well. And then they uploaded files just related, like photos from their stuff. And then the third workshop, we've shared back with them the sort of emerging findings, and then they've created a zine in response, and they can either kind of riff off one of the themes or concepts, or they can use that to sort of speak back to something or add to something or whatever. And I guess something that I've been grappling with, and I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts, especially because you're talking about the exhibition and we're thinking similarly, is how, like, I get, and I hear what you're saying too around they can either choose to be anonymous or not, especially, the nature of what people in your project are talking about and writing about and creating. But I'm wondering, like, for mine, I'm wondering, like, when they have their own experiences or some of them are artists and are really talented artworks, how to honor their copyright, and their intellectual property when you're doing a zine. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, there are a lot of very interesting workshops from the Glasgow Zine Library. They're doing something about copyright. I mean, I asked them to sign an informed consent to give me the possibility to use the contents. Of course, has been shared with them that was my idea to give out to the community, and they were totally fine to give me this thing, like also the intellectual property of their work and the creative one. But I think that it depends a lot of how you negotiate with the people you're working with, because for me, I created that space that actually built up a friendship. It's literally a group of friends now. I probably will be continuing doing zines, but out of my research, out of the context. So they were very willing to give me the possibility to share the work, and for that purpose in particular. If it wasn't that for giving me money, probably not. But of course, it wasn't my purpose to gain money out of this. But to give it back, they were like, yes, of course, I am part of this community and I want to do that. But I know that there has been like a Glasgow Zine Library has been like very much forward when it comes to copywriting, and they had a very huge fair that also hosted seminars for researchers. So Edinburgh Zine Library also. I think that Scotland is very like straightforward when it comes to zines. So I totally recommend to check out their coin queer zines or something like that for Edinburgh, and for Glasgow Zine Library, it's up there, and there is also, I think, some of the seminars are in their website. But yeah, I mean, I'm gaining knowledge as well now, because it's my first zine in the process. So yeah, I've been fascinated by this experience that I'm still dealing with a lot of issues. So thank you for the question. It was amazing. Now I know that you are dealing with this as well. I will be checking, I can link it with you because it's very interesting. Thank you. I don't know if I answered.
No, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
There is another
I'm
question and
checking.
comment from Dino,
Yeah.
who
Yeah,
who's in a
Dino.
shared public silent space. So I'm just going to read it out loud if you
Yeah.
don't mind. He says it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wicked presentation and a great example of how DIY ethos can help articulate the complexities of conceptual underpinnings to explain important social issues. So it would be great to know what your thoughts are in both zine and zine making and the notion of research brave space in terms of harnessing what I think is their untapped potential in addressing various health issues such as autism and trauma from workplace racism.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know that there is, in Italy, we have this graphic medicine association that is using comic making as an element for talking about trauma, autism, health in particular. And I do recommend to check out the work of Veronica Moretti, and I can write down the surname and the work in the chat in a bit, because I mean there are you can never prevent hardness. Like this is what we do. It's always trying our best to prevent harm, but when it comes to zines and the research-based space, it's up to also to the person to deal with this together with the collective space and the collective setting of the methodological, like the methodology you are using. So if it's like an interview, it's just you and the person. But for example, in the zine making, I saw resilience built within the session. So if they were talking about, for example, sexual trauma or sexual violence, they were expressing that to the group, and with the group we're dealing together. And I think zine making has this potential to use the power of collectiveness and messiness to overcome also the problems. I don't know if I'm answering the question right now, but I will be for the untapped potential. And for the untapped potential, being a personal choice, what to do, what to use as a creative mean, is actually releasing their potential, is not harnessing it. Because I'm not as I was saying, I provided some creativity material, but also they were asked to bring their own if they thought it wasn't enough for what I was bringing. That released, for example, the comic artist potential, because, for example, the second meeting she was doing the iPad art instead of a collage, like with literally the first meeting she was working with the watercolors, the second meeting was working with the iPad, the third meeting was dealing with literally papers and paper and pencils work. And she's also neurodivergent. So she was like totally expressing with different means and never stopping. And she felt like, okay, I can go on and strongly express myself in any way. And but I see your worries whenever it comes to particular topics. It's already a thing we know in research. There are being a lot of studies about how to be careful of vulnerability when it comes to very stressful and very discomforting topics. But I saw the potential of art to be healing in that sense, being a crazy nice. And I've been to last year to a summer school in which there was a sociologist that did a work on breast cancer, and literally she was painting with the breast cancer survivors or with the children of recently dead mothers. So I think that the power of art, and art I mean music, performance, collages, whatever you feel it's art, it's actually preventing harness when it comes to distressful topics as work trauma and health issues. So I think that like a research-based space is a good context to work in, but the method is up to the person, and it is potentially up to the person you are working with to choose what's best and what can prevent that, to top the potential of neurodivergent and autistic people. And there are a growing literature of autistic researchers that I really, really want to check out. I'm already starting in a bit, and some of the references I put was from actually one autistic researcher. But I think that listening to their voices can be helpful to understand what can we do more for this particular group of people and human subjects. Yeah, I don't know if I answered, but thank you, Dino, for the amazing question and thought.
That was a truly good question and a fantastic answer. Unfortunately, I see that we are exactly at time.
Yes.
So especially thank you once again to Rachele, who is joining us
Thank
from
you.
Copenhagen so early in the morning in your time zone.
It's
And
fine.
also thank you to all of you who have joined us today. I hope you are all able to take away some nuggets, some food for thought about, the ethical imperative within social science research for it to be inherently transformative, and how we can all embody, cultures of care within our research context. So I know that I have. So again, have a fantastic rest of the day. And thank you, Rachele. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank
see you at the
you.
next
Thank you, Rita.
Postgrad TASA Thursday.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you for all of you.